All right, in this lecture, we're going to go ahead and create a landscape image using the knowledge we learned about shapes and how to put them together. So first off, I'm going to be using a blue pencil to create this underdrawing, and then I'm going to switch over to a darker pencil to do more of my detail work and to solidify the image. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a horizontal line across my page. Now this line is going to be my horizon line, and it's okay if you don't know what a horizon line is. We'll learn more about that later. But for now, we're just going to put that horizon line in there. Next, I'm going to start adding in my mountains. So my mountains are just going to be simple triangles like we saw in our breakdown of that one image. And so I'll add one right there, and then I'll add a smaller one over here. And you can really add in the mountains wherever you like. Next, I'm going to add in a rectangle here. And this rectangle is going to represent a tower that's going to be in my landscape. But for now, the basic shape for that tower is just a rectangle. We're just trying to get the composition laid out and all those basic shapes. Next, I'm going to add in an oval, and then I'll add in a second oval, or they can be called ellipses. And these are going to be a lake. So for now, the simple shape for them is just going to be a circle in perspective. Next, I'm going to start adding detail to this and turning these shapes into more organic shapes. So I'll start by first adding a little bit more of movement to the edges of these lines, and I'm going to add an edge to this mountain also. Then I'll add a little bit more detail to that edge. So we just want to start making these look a lot more organic and less like geometrical shapes. Then I'm going to add an edge to this mountain as well. Then we'll add some more organic shapes to that. Now we can move on to our tower. So the tower is just going to taper off towards the top. And then I'm going to add a nice rounded edge here at the top. It'll be sort of a platform. And then on top of that platform, I want to add in a sphere. So I'm going to draw a circle up there. Next, let's move on to the lake. So now I want to connect these two ovals together to make the shape of my lake. Now we want to add in the reflections into the lake. So what I'm doing is I'm copying the image of my tower and my mountains so that they're mirrored underneath my horizon line. And then whatever appears inside of my lake, that's what I'm going to go in and darken. So everything else is going to stay really light. We don't really want to see that, but anything that's inside of the lake, we can go ahead and darken that. So then I'm going to add in that edge on the mountain, and then I'll add in the darkened edges of my tower. Perfect. Now I'm going to start using my darker pencil, and I'll go in there and start adding in a lot more detail. So I'm just going to darken in a lot of these edges. I can darken in this edge of my mountain, so it's going to have two different planes, and when we go in there and add some shadows to it, it's going to make it look a lot more realistic. I'll add in this edge right here. And really the key to making things organic is kind of giving them a random sort of a shape. So you want to make it look as random as possible and try to stay away from patterns. Now out here on the horizon line, I'm going to add in sort of some grass lines just to break it up so it's not such a hard-edged line. And I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way across my horizon line. If you wanted to, you could also add some trees to this horizon line. You could add some bushes or some larger plants. But for now, just to keep things simple, I'm just going to add in this grass. All right, next, let's go ahead and move on to this tower. So I'm just going to start darkening in these edges. Then I'm going to go ahead and add that detail to my sphere. And I think I also want to add 2 points to the top of here. It'll kind of be sort of a Lord of the Rings type of tower. Then I'll add a tiny little door down here at the bottom. and then I'll add some windows at the top. And as you can see, they're just extremely simple shapes. We don't have to get too detailed with it to get the idea across. Now let's go ahead and move on to our lake. So we want to darken in the edge of our lake so we know where that edge is. So this is our contouring line. Then next, we're going to go ahead and add in those reflections. So I'll go ahead and darken the edge of that tower, and remember, it's only going to be what's within the shape of our lake. Anything outside of that shape, we're going to leave out. Great. Next, what we want to do is we want to start adding in some cross-contouring lines to add more detail and realism to this. So I'm going to start up here at the top of my mountain, and as you can see, I'm adding these straight contour lines that are showing the surface planes of my mountain. And so depending on what direction my cross-contouring lines are going, that's kind of telling you where that plane is in perspective. Then I'll add it onto this mountain. And then I can add a little bit more detail over here. So I'll add a little bit of cross contouring there. And a little bit here. We'll break this piece of the mountain up also. Perfect. Now let's add some cross contouring to our tower. So since this is a round cylinder tower, we're going to go ahead and add it like so. So it has that nice curve in there. And then we're going to go ahead and add that into our reflection. Then we also want to add the cross contouring into the reflection of our mountain. Next, let's go ahead and add in sort of a darker gradient in our sky. This is just going to make our background look a little bit more interesting, and you'll see here in a second we're going to add this into our reflection in our water, and it's going to make our reflection look a lot more realistic, and you'll see why in a second. So now we can go ahead and add that into the reflection of our water. So I'm just going to add that in like so. And what this does is it makes our lake stand out a lot more from the grassy plain area of our drawing. All right. That brings us to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, you learn how to apply the things we learned about shapes and how to put them together to build up an entire image. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something from it, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching.